My name's Zack Kutcher. I was the special effects coordinator on Deep Water.
If you were married to anyone else, you'd be so bored, you'd kill yourself. Do you think we'll ever be just happy?
God, I hope so.
The movie was good. I saw it. It was awesome. There's a couple things on this show that we did a lot of work for, and it only got shown a little bit. I guess it's kind of the name of the game in our industry, right? Doing effects for movies. And I guess it's kind of what you want to be. In some things, you want to be a little bit subtle. Favorite scene in the movie is probably the car going off the cliff. That was the funnest to do. That was the biggest effect scene we had on the movie. So he hops on his bike, and it's like a car and a bike chase through the woods. Ben cuts him off on the bike at one point, and he veers off. And when he veers off, he comes speeding through some trees, and then hits one of the trees and launches off a cliff, and then falls to the bottom to his unfortunate death. Getting the car out of that, because we had, the whole car was rigged full of cameras, so we had, reds and, probably $250,000 worth of cameras and lenses and stuff inside the car. Now we need to get it back. So Justin and I ended up having to rappel down the side of the cliff. We had to get in the water, swim to the car, get in the car, and start de-rigging all of the speed rail and all the crash housings just to get these cameras out. And it took us like the better part of 3 hours to pull the cameras out of this car. But the way we rigged it to make it look like that is we took a gutted car, I think it was a Subaru wagon, and we went ahead and we took our big ratchet, which is like a giant air ram that sucks back, and when it sucks back it pulls line, and we have a pulley system so you could go to 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, so every 1 foot that ram moves back, it moves 4 feet on the other end. So if you have a 7.5 foot stroke times 4 on a 4-to-1, you get 4 times the power and 4 times the length. So we hooked up a ratchet, we did a 4-to-1 pulley system on it, and we placed our car about 25-30 feet back from the cliff, and we put a pick point down at the end, and we set up 2 ramps so the car would have a little bit of animation, so kind of get off the ground a little bit. And then there's a tree that we had positioned to kind of clip the front headlight to try to give the car not a full rotation, but just skim it and give the car a little bit of animation as it flies off the cliff. So we came in a couple weeks early. We went ahead and made all our anchor points because the cliff that we're working on, the earth that is right next to the edge of the cliff, the reason the cliff is there is because the earth has been eroding away for years and years and years. And the only thing that's keeping that landmass kind of held up was the root systems from the trees. So the earth itself was kind of very hard to anchor into. And the way we had the car connected was there was a pin hanging off of the car, and our rope just slips over that pin and pulls. Now once the rope meets the point of the shiv and the car's rolling forward, it pulls out. So when the car's flying off the cliff, there's nothing attached to it. So on the day, we rigged everything up, had our ratchet set, go to send the car comes flying through the brush, rope releases, car hits the tree, spins around, or gets a little bit of rotation, and then dives down into the water below. So we created a rig to try to get Ben Affleck and the tight shots of him mountain biking through the forest and hitting the jumps and animating the bike and doing all that you can't really have him just ride the mountain bike down the mountain and get a camera a couple inches from his face on those tight shots and make that seem real, and not hurt Ben Affleck. So we created this bike rig that allowed Ben to pedal as hard as he wanted. And when you ride a mountain bike or you're pedaling really hard on a bike, the bike's not static. It leans side to side. So being able to create a rig that added enough friction for his legs to pedal and that seemed realistic, and then the animation of the bike going side to side, and then now the bike needs to be able to tilt up and down pretty rapidly to kind of mimic him going over bumps. The way we did that is I took 2 tires, no rims, just the rubber, and I slid them underneath the bike rig, and I've stuck speed rail to each end, and I just had 2 guys duck down and move it side to side on those tires and pivot just on the tires. They make these bike trainers, is kind of what we based the design on, and it's rollers. There's 2 in the back and 1 in the front, and a band ties them together. So we put the bike on, he pedals, it spins the back 2 rollers, that band spins the front roller. So now we kind of have the pedaling thing down, and we could use the gears on the bike, but now we need to hold everything up and still be able to move it side to side. So we built these custom clamps that grabbed the bike, because the bike was all carbon fiber. There was no way to just weld to it or grab or anything. You had to grab it. Full aluminum clamps that pinch together, grab the bike, and we attached 2 air rams to them that just kind of acted as suspension and created a pivot point at the base of it. So you have your pivot point coming up to your 2 rams to the side of the bike, and that allowed him to not only get his pedaling going with the rollers, but now we have that side to side movement. And we kind of built this on a whole tray. So in one of the houses that we were shooting at, they kind of had this pool party go down, and in the pool party, they're all playing around, all having fun, and then boom, it's supposed to be light rain, starts to sprinkle, and then now downpour. In order to do rain at this particular location, it was very difficult. It was a tight backyard that had no access. Also, most movie rain comes in big size water drops because the bigger drops are easier to read on camera, and it's usually an on-off situation. They wanted this very particular light misty rain to start off the sequence, and then the big drops to come after. So we kind of had to build 2 rigs for 2 different stages of rain. Our big drop rain, fortunately, there is these huge, beautiful trees in the location that we were able to rig to. So we kind of did a rain stand type of situation, but it needed to go a little higher. So we went about 25, 30 feet up in these trees and rigged spinner heads off of them. We did it in 3 zones. And then the light rain rig, oddly enough, the owner of the house kind of gave me the idea. And she was talking to me, and she wanted to have zigzagging little lights over her pool. And when she said that, a little light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, that's how we do the light rain. I designed a rig that used very small spectra, which is stronger than steel cable, but it's a very soft and supple rope, used in the marine industry a lot, so it loves being wet. And I was gonna create kind of like the zigzag of the spectra over the pool and hang piece of 1/2-inch PVC with one of the little heads that I found they had is actually a little spinner head, kind of what we use on our big rain rigs, but micro. In the design process, we kind of ended up changing the zigzag to like 6 individual lines that fan out from one point. So I attached the 6 lines to the top of the tree. I slid my PVC in sections. So we had like 8-foot sections, and each section got, I think, like 4 of those little micro rain heads. And then they all daisy chained together, kind of back to this one point. And it spread about maybe 120 feet by 50 or 60 feet. And it flew this entire micro rain system over the pool. And we were able to get just the finest little misty drops out of it and made really, really cool looking rain. We never fucking used it though. In the snail room, we had these mist rigs. I love the way it was lit. I love the way it was art directed. It was kind of cool in there. We kind of see Ben Affleck playing with a bunch of snails that are kind of just your basic Home Depot mist rigs, but the techie part about it was each line and each head had to be manipulated to be able to turn on or off and off on demand and in sections. So if we had camera in the room, say on this half and cameras over here, we want all this dry. So the cameras aren't getting wet and the people aren't getting wet and covered with mist, and it kind of creates an easy environment to work. But over here on this side of the wall, we're shooting. And this is the talent, this is the snails, this is all the stuff we want to get wet. So we had to be able to kind of segregate, okay, the line 1 through 5 off, line 6 through 12 on, and then we had plugs for each individual head, so we could go in there and plug the head and plug the head and plug the head, so we kind of had manipulation of where the mist would land in the room. And it was one of the cooler sets that they had. So at the end of the movie, there was a suitcase that we needed to sink and have it sink on demand. So the little girl throws it in the pool, and then we wait a beat, and then boom, suitcase sinks. And you have to be able to not just get the suitcase to sink, but suitcase to sink at a specified descent rate. So get it down faster or slower. And the way I did it was I took a suitcase and I drilled some holes on the back side of it to allow water to flow in. More holes, more water, faster it sunk. Less holes, less water, slower it sunk. So that's how we kind of manipulated it. And we also used weight to our advantage, and we could add little bits of weight inside the suitcase in certain places to kind of determine the orientation of which it sinks to the bottom. We went and put just standard little party balloons inside the suitcase, and I took a little pyrotechnic charge and I stuck it to each one of the balloons. And I ran a line to outside the pool. So the girl throws the suitcase in the pool, we see the suitcase float for a moment, and I hit a button and both balloons pop, and now the suitcase starts to sink, which I thought it was a pretty cool little low-tech, easy thing to do that just took a little ingenuity. I had a lot of fun doing that one.
Anything you want to say to wrap it up?
If you like the movie, you're welcome.
I'm coming back, that was great.